Hi, everyone. I'm Zach Rubin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alumni Learning Consortium. We worked to put a panel together today of diverse schools with very different kinds of homecoming and reunion programs. So I'm really excited for the conversations we'll be having. I'm joined today with four panelists: Anne Sumangil from College of St. Benedict in Minnesota, Chase Carter from Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma, Aaron McElroy from Creighton University in Nebraska, and JJ Slager from Miami University in Ohio. And thank you all for joining us today and sharing your insights. And now the structure for today that we'll have for each of our panelists will give some background of their institution and the traditional approach they take to alumni homecoming and reunions, as well as what the new approach has been or will be due to COVID-19. And we expect that'll take about the first half of our hour together, and we'll follow that with Q&A from the audience and a more general conversation. With that said, please enter your questions in the chat box below the video, or if you'd rather ask a question privately, just click the Ask a Question button and enter your question there. And now we also would just want to ask everyone, please use the chat box to share your insights, what's been working, what you have planned at your institutions, because we think we can all learn from each other. It's not just us presenting to you all. And now before we dive into our panelists, I'll briefly introduce the consortium and just some of the key takeaways we've gathered from our panelists and other alumni offices that we've been talking with as well. And now the Alumni Learning Consortium is a partnership of more than 60 alumni associations working together to create more and better online programming for their alumni. Membership includes a platform for schools to create their own online events and live stream campus programs. The consortium also creates 3 to 4 white label webinars each month that bring top tier speakers to alumni of all of the member schools. And the consortium is managed in partnership with Professional Book Club Guru, which manages online alumni book clubs for more than 200 alumni associations around the world. And now to maybe help get us started, I want to just share some of the key takeaways we've kind of heard over and over again from many different schools. So first and foremost, there's just a lot less certainty about what the future holds now than even in July when we were first planning for the webinar. And for that reason, we really are serious. Please share your own insights and thoughts and plans in the chat box, because we think there'll be a lot of value there in addition to what we'll be able to share with you all today. Overall, though, it seems there's really 4 main strategies schools are taking for homecoming and reunions this year, and these aren't necessarily mutually exclusive by any means. The first is simply to postpone programs for a year and see what happens and kind of plan for hopefully things to be passed. The second is to just cancel programs that would have been happening altogether and then create different programs or different engagement opportunities in their place. The third is to move programs online completely. And the fourth is to continue to have those traditional events, possibly live streaming them for those unwilling or unable to meet in person. And this fourth option really seems to be what many schools were originally planning over the summer, and that has changed more and more as we come into the fall. And perhaps the biggest takeaway, though, that we've just heard over and over again from many schools is that alumni are really understanding during this difficult time for the most part. And schools that are communicating regularly and offering ways for alumni to engage seem to be getting a very positive response. While those that have gone dark, so to speak, and just feel like they don't have much to offer without their more typical in-person programs, really seem to be losing kind of a prime engagement opportunity while just kind of waiting things out and hoping things will be back to normal soon. That said, I want to let Anne take it away from here and kick us off with some more info from College of St. Benedict.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to you, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Anne Sumangil. I am the Director of Alumni Relations at the College of St. Benedict. St. Ben's, as we're also known, is located in central Minnesota, and we are the only Catholic Benedictine college for women in the country. A fun fact about us, as you can probably see on the slide, is that St. Ben's was founded 6 years before women were given the right to vote. We are uniquely partnered with St. John's University, and starting in 1975, our classes became co-ed with the Link Bus connecting our 2 campuses. We are 2 separate institutions with 1 president for each school and separate boards of trustees. Additionally, we also fundraise separately, so it's a very interesting dynamic. The women at St. Ben's are about 53% of the student body between St. Ben's and St. John's, and we have about 25,000 living alumni. St. John's has about the same. In addition to our students from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, we also have students from 37 different states and 21 countries. Our reunion has taken place the last full weekend of June since 2016, so it's fairly recent for us. This year, we were actually going to start a new 5-year cycle of reunions. Prior to that, we hosted our reunion separately. So St. Ben's hosted ours at the end of June, and St. John's hosted theirs during homecoming in the fall. We chose the last weekend in June as it was it was an opportunity for us to have one last fundraising push before the end of our fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. Our attendees are housed on both campuses with some programming for both schools, but also programming for each respective school. Alums can start moving in on Thursday of reunion weekend with events that begin on Friday. And we host events throughout the weekend like Alum College, which happens throughout Friday, Saturday, and part of Sunday, which are classes delivered by our faculty and our alums. On Friday, we have separate events for our Golden Anniversary class or our 50th reunion class on each campus. Together, we have a memorial service and a reunion launch party for everyone. On Saturday, we have separate morning programming for each of our schools so that we can deliver our key messages, followed by what we call the big brunch for all attendees. On Saturday evening, we host separate reunion dinners where we celebrate our reunion award recipients, and we end the day with a big concert for everyone in town. On Sunday, we close our reunion with Mass on each campus. As most colleges and universities do, we celebrate the classes in 5-year intervals. Our homecoming takes place in the fall, where we promote St. Ben's soccer and volleyball games, as well as St. John's football. This year, we canceled our reunion as a result of COVID-19, as many of you have. So we plan on hosting an epic reunion in 2021 with our classes ending in 0, 5, 1, and 6. Our homecoming is still up in the air since our fall sports are moved to spring 2021, but we do hope to host homecoming if that's an opportunity for us. Over the summer, we created a virtual series through the ALC called St. Ben's at Home, where our Vice President of Institutional Advancement interviewed a variety of individuals on our campus that are listed on the slide. We've enjoyed using the ALC for our St. Ben's at Home series. It gives us an opportunity to have a professional look for our virtual events, and it allows us to connect with many more alumni than we would have engaged with in-person events. So we are currently planning our fall St. Ben's at Home series, and we look forward to hosting in-person events sometime in the future. But in the meantime, we're grateful to have our partnership with the ALC to continue to connect with our alumni. I'll turn it over to our friends at Oklahoma State University. Welcome.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks to everyone who's watching today. My name is Chase Carter. I'm the Director of Marketing and Engagement Systems at the OSU Alumni Association in Stillwater. So a little bit about Oklahoma State, where I have 2 degrees from. We've got about 250,000 living alumni, about 25,000 students on our Stillwater campus. We have 4 other campuses across the state. OSU is located in Stillwater, Oklahoma, relatively small size college town, about 50,000. If you've been paying attention to the news any recently, we've been making some headlines with a sorority house specifically that has gone under quarantine during COVID-19. So making news for not good reasons. Back to homecoming, that program is managed by the OSU Alumni Association, not the university. We are a separate 501c nonprofit. So a little bit of a unique setup there. And our homecoming is extremely student driven. So while we have staff who serve as advisors for homecoming committees, we do have 3 homecoming committees that make up about 200 students total. In a tiered system, there's an executive team of 9, a steering committee of about 60, and then a big committee, as it's called, of over 100 student volunteers And then, of course, all of these students are working with campus life, Greek life, residential life, to host all the numerous events and activities that we do throughout the week of homecoming. So it is very much a student and alumni-centric event here at OSU. And Zach, if you could advance that slide. There we go. So traditionally, we like to say that we host America's greatest homecoming. It's an event that we've been doing since 1920. So if you do the math, this would have been our centennial year in 2020. It has obviously grown over the years from one specific carnival-like event back in 1920 to today. We host over a dozen events that are spread over 9 days, a total of one weekend at each end, followed by a week's worth of activities in the middle. Our featured event, which we're extremely proud of, is Walk Around. That's traditionally held on the Friday before the football game, and we usually have about 80,000 people come out to that event. It's spread out over about 4 hours. We close down 10 plus blocks surrounding the university, specifically where the Greek houses are located. And the Greeks produce extraordinary house decorations. It's really something that words cannot describe. And like I said, this has been a tradition here since the 60s for Walk Around, where we would close down the streets and have alumni come. So obviously, we knew very much going into COVID-19 that that was not something that was going to be able to happen, and that was one of the reasons why we made the decisions that we did. Other events that we host during homecoming week include the traditional parade that most people are familiar with. That's held Saturday morning before the football game. The carnival that started our homecoming tradition is still held during the week, and it's a great festival for Stillwater families and community members to come out. The students create educational games based around the homecoming theme for the kids to participate in, and we also have a chili cook-off as well. And then obviously there's also a big pep rally Friday night that we do in conjunction with OSU Athletics in our basketball arena following Walk Around. Homecoming for us is definitely centered around the entire Cowboy family and not as much focused on reunions. We do have now 5 undergraduate colleges, 2 of them had merged, that host individual reunion events on Friday and Saturday. Those are open to all alumni of their colleges, not just reunion-specific alumni who are celebrating a certain graduation anniversary. A few of those colleges do have small ceremonies and hand out some sort of commemorative pin to graduates who are celebrating 25 or 50-year anniversaries from their OSU graduation. But that's not a primary focus. It's really meant to be a large gathering of all OSU alumni, family and friends, and current students who want to come back and support this great tradition that we have here at OSU. So this year, just a couple of weeks ago on August 3rd, we made the very difficult decision, an announcement that we were going to not host homecoming in 2020. I probably broke my own rule there when I was writing out these slides. We specifically chose not to use the word cancel, but if you go look at our website and on all the communications that we put out, we went with the standpoint of that we are not going to host it this year because of 2019. We didn't like the negative connotation that came from using the word cancellation. So there's not going to be any in-person alumni events on our campus that week. And right now, we're not heavily considering a virtual option, and we're doing that for a number of reasons. The walk-around event that I described is really not something that any sort of virtual event could take the place of, and we recognize that first and foremost, and considering that this was going to be our centennial year, we knew even more so that there wasn't really any virtual component that could take the place of what our homecoming is. We're also doing a number of other virtual events and have been during the summer with the help of ALC. So we feel like we are offering virtual opportunities for alumni to engage with us outside of what a virtual homecoming could have done. We are still very focused on ensuring that the students, should they be on campus, hopefully still in October, are able to celebrate some sort of OSU spirit. And so we are looking at hopefully doing some events or giveaways for them that would obviously be in compliance with CDC guidelines so that they still get some sort of engagement with us during what would have been homecoming week. We are planning on still hosting our centennial. It has been postponed now until 2021. A lot of people might find that strange, but since we are not hosting a homecoming this year, the plan is then to just host the centennial next year. We'll have a whole nother year to plan. We had already been planning for a year and a half, so we have a lot of the details nailed down. But hopefully, we hope that the spirit will just be even greater next year, now that alumni are unfortunately not going to be able to celebrate homecoming 2020 this year. So that is what things are looking at right now, what we're looking at in Oklahoma State. And I think next is Erin from Creighton.
Hello, everyone. I am Erin McElroy, Senior Program Coordinator for Alumni Relations at Creighton University. Creighton is a private Catholic Jesuit university located in Omaha, Nebraska. It was founded in 1878. We have 9 schools and colleges which offer both undergraduate and professional training. And we're super excited. A second health sciences campus is opening in Phoenix, Arizona in 2021. So really exciting news for us. As far as alumni and student populations, our approximate student count is 8,000, which includes undergraduate, graduate, and professional students. And our current alumni count is 77,506 individuals. Next slide, Zach. Thank you. So Creighton has both a homecoming and reunion weekend, which bookend the academic year. This split is very recent, as of 2019. We recently just made the change. Both celebrations to be together in the fall as one combined homecoming. So homecoming now takes place in the fall around the men's soccer schedule. This celebration is focused on students and families, and family weekend takes place around the same time, if not the same weekend. And then our reunion weekend takes place in the spring, and the celebration is solely focused on alumni. It has 3 days of events, which include class parties, mass, family events, and a large presidential dinner. And normally we have around 60 plus individual events during this weekend of all sorts. We have also recently allowed dorm stay for alumni for a fee as well. That was supposed to be new as of this year, and we will be trying it in 2021, apparently. We actively recruit reunion ambassadors only for the 25, 40, and 50-year reunions, but for each of the schools and colleges as well. But although our reunions are focused on these years, we will support and celebrate other years based on interest. We won't turn anybody away. Class gifts are also encouraged by the celebrating years as well. So what's changed for this year? This year, homecoming, which was supposed to take place this September, was canceled. We canceled it back in April. That will not return until sports return. As of right now, there are no plans for this year currently. Reunion weekend, which was slotted for May of 2020, was officially postponed until June 2021. However, a small number of virtual events were held in its place and were fairly well attended. We had a virtual trivia night, which was very successful. We had about 150 people log in for that, and there probably would have been more, but we did have a max limit for that one as far as participating teams. We had a virtual mass, which got about 50 people, and then a town hall with the president, which was a webinar, and that had more than 200 people log in. We also had 2 virtual class parties that were held upon request, kind of virtual happy hours. Those were via Zoom, and they had about 20 people each, but those were for individual classes. All of the postponed 2020 class parties will be celebrated alongside the 2021 reunions. We will be giving them the option to either celebrate as a huge group together, or if they want to do their own thing, that is up to them as well. So we're giving them the option. And we are moving forward with 3 different versions of a plan that may be executed in the spring. The first version is a full in-person reunion as normal. This one will be bigger because it'll be the 2 years combined. We might do a hybrid reunion, or there's a small chance we'll still be doing a full virtual reunion of some sort. Since Creighton is a significant educator in the health sciences, we've kept certain areas of campus open during the summer semester for clinical work. For example, the dental school was still seeing patients this summer. This will also be true in 2021. So a completely virtual reunion would be incorporated in 2021 in order to protect these programs if necessary. Hopefully that won't be the case, but that is one of the options we're exploring. In the end, a lot is still unknown at this time, but we're trying our best to go with the flow and take things day by day. Thank you. And perfect. JJ's next.
Hello, everybody. Thanks to Zach for inviting me. Thank you all for watching. I am JJ Slager. I'm with Miami University's Alumni Association. I'm an associate director of alumni engagement. And if you're not familiar with Miami, we are not the Florida version of Miami, but we were founded in 1809 in Oxford, Ohio. We have about 20,000 students, 230,000 alumni, and we really pride ourselves on kind of our campus and also being one of the original public Ivies when I believe that book came out and gave us some recognition for that. Also known for kind of not being a football powerhouse, but for launching the careers of a lot of football legends. And so that's a little bit about Miami. We being in a small town, Oxford has less than 20,000 residents. So the size of the town doubles when the Miami students are here. And we're 45 minutes from Cincinnati. So we have alumni spread all over. And so that's one thing that's maybe some of you have in common out there as well. Our reunion is traditionally Alumni Weekend is our big reunion. It's the second weekend of June, and that is when we bring the most people back. And part of that, I think, is because of the lack of hotel space in a small town. We can't. A football weekend is already going to have a full hotels, and it's harder to house people. And so the June reunion Alumni Weekend has allowed us to use dorm space, which is always actually very popular. It's pretty cheap for people to come back and stay in their dorms for Alumni Weekend. And it includes all kinds of programming, a lot of the stuff that I think many of you are doing and I've already heard on this call, but tours, ceremonies, dinners, a 5K, alumni college classes, class reunions, kids activities. And it kind of culminates with a big party right in the middle of campus, which has like a, almost like a wedding feel, like a fancier party with a band and obviously food and all that. And normally we have about 1,000 people at that party and maybe 1,500 at Alumni Weekend total. So that's our big reunion. Homecoming we tend to do similar things, but it's normally more focused on specific groups. I'm sure some of you have seen a little bit less of a trend of class years than in the past. Obviously, we still like Alumni Weekend. The 50th is huge, and we still try to do the 25th and whatever. But we've had a little less focus both with Alumni and Weekend and Homecoming on class years because we find less and less people associate with just their class year. And so we've kind of shifted that focus a little more to affinity groups. And so that's who normally, many people will come back to Homecoming, but a lot of the Alumni Association's programming is focused on the alumni band, for example, that comes back every year, the Black Alumni Group, the affinity groups that have made Homecoming a thing. So that is kind of our traditional reunion, Alumni Weekend reunion, and then Homecoming setup. So this year we already went through Alumni Weekend in the age of COVID, and we decided to do as much as we could online. We had in March when everything shut down, we had a couple things set up. We were part of the Alumni Book Club already, and we have a mentorship platform. So we had some decent virtual programming as a jump start, but we dove right into ALC and being a part of the webinar platform. And so luckily we had a little jump on getting a lot of this virtual stuff ready. So aside from reunions, we've done now just since April, 25 of our own webinars with our own faculty presenting, 10 chapter webinars, which have included, people in different chapters, our cities, and have had great attendance at those. Almost 10,000 people have now watched some of our webinar programming. So luckily we were kind of set up to do a lot of things online. And so basically we looked at Alumni Weekend. What could we do? What can we take and have it be, obviously not quite as much engagement as people being on campus, but what can we still give them? And so Alumni College was a big part of that. We still had professors lecturing talking about things that were interesting. We had some COVID ones and some ones that were specific, like actually to try to help people, but also lighthearted and more fun ones, wine tastings and virtual yoga, and toasted rolls are a big tradition at Miami. So we always have those at Alumni Weekend. Obviously couldn't do that, but we gave people the recipe. We gave them a demo of how to do that with a little video of how to make toasted rolls. A concert normally happens with the Glee Club. That still happened. We just programmed it online, put it on the web. There were a couple different reunions that basically did like a Zoom type thing, like our Latin group, and trivia. A couple other people mentioned trivia. Trivia was a big hit as well. And so we just tried to take what was already popular and what we could put online and put it online. And with great results. Like I said, our normal Alumni Weekend, we have about 1,500 people, and we had over 2,000 people watch different things. So in a way, it allowed us to reach more people. Again, not quite as much engagement as being back on campus for a weekend, but homecoming plans, we're still trying to figure out. Our football season is canceled, and so there will not be an in-person homecoming either, obviously. But we've talked about the same thing. Think about what we've done in the past. What of that can transfer online and still give people something? Online tours. We're talking about trying to still do something around football, whether it's like a little series or interviews or play an old game or something like that. And so that's all the stuff we're kicking around. What's really nice about doing it virtually is you don't have to plan quite so far ahead. I think Chase talking about planning for 1.5 years for their homecoming. Well, we don't have plans yet for October, but we're not as worried about it in the webinar age, because people sign up for things so late and it's easier to put things together. And so that's been kind of a nice feature of this too. So I think that covers my overview. I'm probably tossing it back to Zach, I believe, and we'll go from there. Thanks again for having me.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone, for giving the overview. I'll leave people's emails up for just a little bit here if anyone wants to follow up with our panelists. But really, the rest of our time is for Q&A and kind of general discussion. Thank you so much. Several people have already submitted questions, which is awesome. And also, we've got a lot of great comments just with some plans people already have from the schools that are watching, especially if anyone has anything they think is a little more unique or really interesting that they're planning for the fall or even for the spring. Feel free to share that in the comments as well. And obviously enter your questions either in that Ask a Question button or just write in the comments. So maybe to start, one person asked, Anne, for the St. Ben's at Home series, just a little more about the attendance and engagement, about how many people have been showing up for those events and programs.
Right. So overall, with the 7 that we delivered, we had folks from 23 states and 3 countries joining us. We invited parents, faculty, staff, friends, and alumni. Amongst those who registered, about 451 people viewed it live. So we track it so that we know who viewed it live and also who viewed it after the fact. So in total, overall, those 7 sessions we had 964 views. We consider it a good event in the Twin Cities when we have about 25 to 30 people at each event. So to have that many people view the series was really good for us because we are able to engage folks from all over the world. We had a 59% average show rate, which means folks registered and then 59% of them actually watched live. Some of them that might have missed it could have watched after the fact, but we really tracked the live show rate right now. So yes, that's kind of some of the data on that. I'm happy to answer more questions if folks want to email me directly, but let me know if there's any other questions that you all have.
And then, JJ, a question more specifically for you. Just how did you track the 2,000 people watched or took part in the Alumni Weekend events?
Yeah, so what's really nice is with the ALC, basically we put all our virtual stuff, aside from just like a Zoom reunion or whatever, or like a Facebook Live quick video. We don't count those numbers. Facebook, it's so hard to count because it'll say like 30,000 views, but a lot of times I think people just scroll past them or whatever. But we didn't count those numbers. But the numbers that we do count are easily tracked now on ALC because we have everyone sign up on our webinar homepage, which if you haven't looked into it yet, it's like a white label. It kind of has our look and feel, but it's a website hosted by ALC. And so everyone registers through that. What I also like about that is it's very simple to register: name, email, class year. You can ask more if you want, but we've had so many problems with registration in the past with people not remembering their passwords and all that stuff. And so this is a nice, simple registration. And we also capture new emails that way. But anyway, we can see how many people register. And then as soon as the video airs, we can call up a report, how many watched. We're finding probably over 2/3, maybe 3/4 are watching after they sign up live. And then most of those, the rest of those end up watching later or trickle in, and ALC keeps track of all that for us.
Thanks, JJ. And the person who asked that question is actually an ALC member, so I hope they kind of knew that already, but I'll follow up.
Maybe they were setting you up for some,
I don't know.
some good publicity.
Here's a more general question that I think several of you may be able to chime in, and just asking if there's been issues with getting older alumni engaged with online activities, and was there a different approach to guiding them to use online platforms just for people who are less tech savvy? And if anyone wants to start with that, feel free.
What's funny is I was just looking at a slide with some of our webinar numbers, and I saw we had people join from the class of 1946 was our earliest graduate. So I didn't even do the math, but I think, I don't know that there's a huge strategy other than we have contact information on there. They at least have to be able to open their email, and we do get a couple emails. I wasn't able to register, I suppose, but it's very, very simple. Like, it's fill out first name and last name. And if they can't do that, I don't know that we're going to catch them for virtual programming. So I don't know if there's a specific strategy there, and if anybody else has anything.
I'd kind of echo that, just to say that we try to put the videos out in as many places as possible. So we're obviously using ALC first and foremost, but we also stream them to Facebook, and we send out a push notification on our mobile app. The upcoming webinar schedule is in nearly every email that we send out, regardless of the other topic, kind of at the bottom of the email. So we try to publicize them everywhere we can. But to JJ's point, we also haven't seen very many issues at all with people trying to access them. And email's our primary tool to reach everybody alumni of all ages, So we haven't necessarily run into that issue at OSU.
And at St. Ben's, we usually have somebody monitoring the email account that's affiliated with our events to ensure that folks can get onto the ALC if they haven't been able to. Generally, we were able to get it figured out right away. A lot of times, not a lot of times, but the folks that do ask questions to us about getting into the system, a lot of it is the result of the email going into their spam folder. So we try to, in the early marketing stages, to make sure folks put that email account in their accepted email, so that it doesn't end up in the spam folder, and we can usually help them find it.
I think it's just, sorry. I think it's just really cool. Something we've been discussing in my office is we've talked about doing digital webinars, digital events in the past, but a good chunk of our alumni population are older alumni who aren't tech savvy. But COVID is kind of forcing everybody, young and old, to become more tech savvy. And a lot of our older alumni populations who were pushing against virtual events are now super open to them because they've been Zooming with their grandkids, and that's the only way they can see their grandkids. And so whether or not we go solely virtual on certain things going forward, we will be utilizing virtual events because it's a great way to reach alumni who aren't in our main regional areas, and being able to reach people on their own time wherever they're at is really important to keep people engaged. So on that sense, COVID has done some good things for us.
Definitely. Aaron, and I'll just add on what Anne was saying for the spam. We added a message on the confirmation page saying check your spam folder if you don't see the confirmation email, and that dropped the number of people saying, I don't know where the link is, probably in half or more. So anything where you're sending out an email, or if people are registering through Zoom or WebEx or something like that, and they need a link, I'd put something in the email coming from you or on the confirmation page saying to look for that, and that seems to help tremendously. Another question just about advertising and marketing. Is anyone marketing events other than through email and social media? And specifically for social media, any particular techniques people are finding to be more successful with online programming?
I will say that I mentioned that we kind of try to push our videos out everywhere. For Facebook, we have been utilizing the scheduled Facebook Live option, which you are limited to use it has to be a week out from the event, but we do utilize that so that as people see it in their feed, they can click on it and get a reminder when the feed goes live. So we have been utilizing that. Otherwise, it's been primarily email, social media. I mentioned our mobile app as well, that we send out a push notification on whenever we schedule a live, and then whenever it actually happens, we send out a notification so they can just click on that and open it and view it right then.
Yeah, not much to add there. Almost all of our signups are coming from email still. You can see when it happens, like we'll try all the social media, but the bulk of all the registrations are within 24 hours of an email specifically about it. So I think just keep hitting the email, I suppose.
Same.
Great. Chase, a question for you. Just, I think you may be the only school that currently has on our panel that currently has fall sports, particularly football, still on the books. Can you tell us just a little bit more about whatever the current plan is for that, and how you all are navigating that as an alumni association?
Sure. So right now, OSU is planning on, I think, 20 to 25% capacity inside the stadium. This past Monday, it was when season ticket holders were required to submit to the athletic department whether they wanted to opt in or opt out of tickets. And so at this point, I think they're now going through, based on a point system and how long you've been a season ticket holder, how many tickets you have, to see. I assume we'll fill up the stadium based on those, but I can't say that 100%. And then I'm also not sure how the student tickets are going to factor into that as well. So that is all TBA. There will not be tailgating on campus, which we have probably as big of a tailgating tradition as we do a homecoming tradition. So that was also not a huge shock to everybody. I think they were excited that we were, at least at this point, still planning to have football games. So from the standpoint of homecoming, we do feel like we made the right decision. We kept the athletic department informed through the entire process, and they were well aware that we were planning to announce that we were not going to have homecoming events. They worked with us to remove the label of homecoming from that October 31st game. So they will not be calling it a homecoming game either, since we're the primary host of all of the events. So right now, we don't plan to have our building open on game days, since there will not be tailgating on campus. So we're still navigating that message and rolling that out to alumni. So, but happy to answer any questions. Hopefully I answered that specific one.
Great. Thank you, Chase.
Mm-hmm.
A question for JJ, just how do you do a virtual wine tasting? Because it seems like that was obviously a very successful event for you all.
Yeah, actually we've done, I think 4 or 5 now because it's been so successful. But the first thing that we took from that is that think of like who your popular professors are anyway. And that led to wine tasting for us because, the wine professor's been there 30 years teaching this wine class. So many people have had him. He's always been involved. And so that was already one of our most popular professors in person. And so that was the first part to figure out to get him involved. But as far as how's it work logistically, better than we thought. Basically, we just asked him to come up with a wine list of wines that were popular enough that people could find all over the country, probably in their grocery store or local wine store. So he looked for, popular labels And then 2 weeks out, we would publicize those and say, here's the 4 wines to get. And, you know, even a link to wines.com, they could have ordered them in time if they wanted to. But so basically just publicize what you're going to have. And then on the actual webinar, it ran like any other webinar. Have him in front of a camera with the wines, with glasses, and he does his usual tasting just like usual. And yeah, so our very first webinar was a historical presentation. And back to the question about getting like the earlier generations involved, like the history ones have been huge with them. And we had 700 people watch, and we thought, oh, no webinar's ever gonna pass that. And then our very first wine tasting had 2,000 people watch it alone, which was basically our biggest alumni event ever, I think. So very popular. And a lot of those were groups. We got a bunch of pictures of like, you know, people finally getting together with a few different couples, and they would send us pictures of different Miami alums watching together, tasting the wines together. Since then, we added, you know, foods to go with it if you want to pair. And so I don't know if it'll work as well for every school because we have a very popular wine professor, and but those have been our biggest virtual events for sure.
That's great, JJ. Yeah, no, I think that one wine tasting may be the biggest single event I think we've seen like across the whole platform in terms of like number of attendees. So definitely some of it's that great professor, and some of it's just, you know, people like to drink wine for sure.
Yeah, like I said, we did COVID ones, we did like fake news, all this stuff that we thought was really important, and we got 100 or 200 people for those too. But then when it was wine, people like have had enough news, I think, and so we found more success with history, wine, things that take their mind off of the important topics. So even if we want to help them with important stuff, it seems like they're more looking to us, not for like advice on how to deal with COVID, but for a distraction. And so, yeah, that's been a big learning.
Great. A question for Aaron. When you announced a lot of your fall events were canceled, and it sounds like you announced that very early in the year, did you see any effect on enrollment as students might be afraid they wouldn't get the traditional college experience?
I can't speak a ton to enrollment because I'm not in that area, but I do know we had highly anticipated that, and I don't believe the dip was as drastic as we thought it was going to be. I think there was a small dip in enrollment, but last I heard things were not looking horrible anyway. So I don't have exact numbers for you, but I know it was less than we had anticipated.
Great. We have another question, more general for the group. Just what equipment are you using to record? Actual cameras, laptops, and anything in particular for making your events as high quality as you can?
We did a virtual event in June, a series of virtual events. We have a very popular program called Grandparent University, where we have grandparents and legacies ages 6 to 13, I believe it is, typically return to campus. It's over the span of 2 weeks, and we host 2 different sessions, and they stay in OSU dorms, eat in campus dining, and then they actually take 6 hours of a specific OSU major that's obviously reduced and simplified for kids. And so that obviously went online this year, and we set up 10 different majors online, similar to kind of what JJ and the wine program did. We created supply lists on Amazon so that the attendees could go out and purchase all of those in one fell swoop and have them mailed to them. And then, like I said, we invited instructors, and there were courses on chemistry and biology and Oklahoma history and different things. 7 of them were recorded, 3 of them we did live. And so I invested in a relatively inexpensive HD webcam to hook up to my laptop, and some extra USB cable just so that I didn't have to be using my laptop camera for that. For the live ones, we actually did go to the classroom, and we used an existing wireless microphone that we had You could probably borrow one if you have an on-campus group. They're also relatively expensive as well, just so that we could get good audio and good video for the broadcast. But other than that, it was utilizing my MacBook Pro that I have for work. So for all the other ones that we've been doing, we really haven't told anyone else any differently than utilizing the standard webcam on their laptop, but obviously making sure that the lighting is good. Lighting and audio can really make or break a good webinar. So I definitely make sure that they can position themselves in front of a window, avoid fluorescent lighting, and then just make sure there's not a lot of background noise going on. Or if you have AirPods like I'm using today, those also really help as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, all I was going to say is our large webinars that we've done have we've had significant support from our campus event team, which is within our division of university communications and marketing. So they have a lot of that camera and lighting equipment already. Sorry here. So for the larger webinars, we've been utilizing their supply, and that is available for some of the smaller ones as well, if we wish. But otherwise, for the smaller little happy hours we've thrown and stuff like that, we've just been using our normal equipment. We did invest fairly recently in one of those, the circle lights for that social media folks use often. We invested in one of those on a tripod. Yep, exactly. So our office does now have one of those. We got it for move-in weekend, actually, because that just happened last week. Normally we have a photo booth, but with COVID, we didn't think that was the safest option. So what we ended up doing was putting that circle light on a tripod outside of St. John's Church on our university as kind of a photo station, and people could put their own phone on it, take their picture, put the timer on. And so it was really hands-free for our team. And then all we did was wipe it down after each use with a Clorox wipe. But now we have that for future webinars or happy hours or anything we decide to do going forward. So that is the one piece of technology we did end up buying. So JJ, I think you were next.
Yeah, so this is something we've improved a lot over, our first couple, and it was just kind of figuring out how inexpensive stuff was. And one of our alumni weekend webinars was actually one of our media guys, and he's like, just invest in a podcast mic, invest in a webcam, and we hadn't really done that, but they do make a difference. Hopefully, you can tell with clarity versus a laptop camera. This webcam I'm using was $20 on Amazon, but it's HD and it's a lot more clear than my laptop was. And then we invested in a podcasting mic, which I'm using all this stuff now, but I think it was $50 or $60, but again, a lot better than the laptop audio. And then the lighting. And then the only other thing was we bought some lapel mics that were only $10. And so when we test with a faculty member a week ahead of time, if their audio isn't great, then we can just send them over either the webcam or a lapel mic and get them set up that way. And then I think, like Chase was saying, I think the lighting is huge. Avoid backlighting, and then just try to get their eyes, about 2/3 from the bottom, because you see so many people like down here at bad angles. And I think those were just the little things that we cleaned up as we've gone along that have made a big difference. I think Anne was going to speak too. Sorry.
Yes, no, you're fine, JJ. So for us, because our series is called St. Ben's at Home, we wanted, that allowed us to give everybody a little grace with people walking in the background or pets, or we wanted them to be at home so we can it feels a little more, grounded. So we didn't have any interaction other than rehearsals prior to the event. So that was when we would test sound and lighting, and folks that we were interviewing would be able to test setup and whether or not we could hear them. Our vice president of institutional advancement uses one of those snowball microphones. It sits on a little tripod. It's literally a round ball on top of a tripod that will pick up the sound, and it reduces the echo for her. But other than that, everyone was using their own laptops or iPads or whatever the system they had. But we do also have some technology on campus, but with our campus closed over the summer, we weren't able to access it. So we just went with it for this summer.
Great. Question here for people who've done more virtual events. Have you had any stakeholders like the president or VP of advancement or anyone like that who were opposed to virtual events or doing some of the components more online, and how did you handle it? And it sounds like some things were just canceled outright. So obviously there was some extent of just agreement that didn't make as much sense. But did you get any pushback internally on any of the programs you've been doing?
I would say to the contrary. We had a lot of administration who were very interested in doing it with us, including several staff members from OSU Athletics, which is a campus partner, but traditionally not someone who we would do a lot of virtual programming. Well, we didn't do any virtual programming before, but we've had the athletic director, the deputy athletic director, basketball coach. So they've been very open and excited to do things with us. I think that they're interested in getting their messages out just as we are. So we haven't had any pushback.
Yeah, I was going to say that we had a small amount of pushback on, originally we wanted to do all of our class parties virtually, still do live ones in person next year, but there was talks of doing virtual class parties for each of the classes that was celebrating this year. We got a little pushback on that, not because of the fear of technology, but just because when we postponed it, we had very little time to plan. And I think the whole reason for the pushback was, do we have enough time to do that right or correctly, or where it would be well strategized? And so that's why we ended up doing a couple just on demand, but not offering it straight out to everybody. And I think that actually worked fine. And then there wouldn't be any confusion as to, oh, well, if we're doing it virtually now, does that mean we're not coming back next year and doing it? So we kind of had a hybrid of that instead. And I think that allowed us to focus our efforts on the classes that really wanted to do it and not worry about the classes who were pushing back at that time. Again, that was April and all this stuff was really new at that time. Now I feel we're a little more savvy with all of it, but the pushback wasn't against the technology. And in fact, as I said earlier, we're considering as an option to do a completely virtual reunion next year. Hopefully it won't come to that, but it is something we're exploring.
Yeah, and this probably isn't helpful for the person who is experiencing pushback, but same thing. And I'll even say, like I mentioned, we've had 25 faculty webinars already since April. Not one faculty member has said no. Basically, we're 25 with 25 for invites because it's easier now than committing to an in-person event where they have to come and show up. Basically, I'm asking them to be in front of their computer for an hour. And if they have a presentation that they can already do, that's the whole ask. And it's been so easy. So if you're thinking about this and you're worried about getting faculty or administration or athletic people involved, same thing. We've just had people saying yes. And also we're going to start including alumni more, and it's an easier ask because it's hard to get them to Oxford, Ohio. It's not really on anyone's way anywhere, but now they just have to be at their desk again. And so I think it's a lot easier ask.
For us, I think it was helpful that we had our vice president involved from the beginning. So she was able to influence the other folks that participated, other people in the cabinet level, which is all the VPs, and of course our president's office. So I think that might be helpful too, as people are trying to plan these events, is really trying to start with folks at the top and get them engaged so that it'll kind of trickle down to the rest of the organization.
Great. A question here, has anyone hosted or had success with hosting events that offer breakout sessions? And if so, what platform did you use? What did you find successful with that?
So we haven't hosted one from the Alumni Association, but I was a part of one last week that our Career Center did, and they did it through Zoom.
We've used the breakout sessions for some of our board meetings, again with Zoom, but those are much smaller groups. The board I assist with is our National Alumni Board, and we have a group of about 25. So when we broke up into individual sessions, it was 5 groups of 5-ish, and that was easy to handle. We are talking about doing on a webinar a larger group, say like 300, and dividing them up into breakout groups based on their regional areas. We're doing a Welcome to the City event at the end of September, where we're inviting alumni to come and share restaurants in their areas, restaurants or businesses they may own in those areas, all that sort of thing, and just having a big dialogue about it. So again, this is kind of early in the works. We haven't finalized anything yet, but we were just talking about how to utilize breakout rooms with possibly larger groups. And one of the things we talked about is using the poll feature, because within those breakout groups, if you have a poll and you give them multiple answers that they can select from, we can say, okay, well, those of you who answered it this way, what are your thoughts on this? And then that kind of breaks out those breakout rooms into smaller groups, sort of. Again, this is early in discussions, but that is something we've talked about.
Great. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have not also done one specifically at OSU through a professional organization I'm a part of, CAMP, for alumni marketing and membership professionals. Our conference this summer was virtual. We had about 250 people attend. We also used Zoom. We encountered some difficulty with the breakout rooms with a group that size, since you do kind of have to manually split them up on the fly. So when we had breakout sessions, we went ahead and purchased enough seats to be able to host 2 different webinars at the same time, as opposed to using the breakout rooms, and that seemed to work well for us. We did utilize the breakout rooms for some just networking opportunities when we didn't care who was paired with who. We just split everybody up into groups or 5 or 10, and that worked really well. So that's about all the experience I can say to that, but we also utilize Zoom.
Yeah, and at St. Ben's, it's the same. We've been utilizing Zoom as well, but mainly for meetings rather than events. So we use the breakout rooms there, but as for the larger events, no, we have not used them.
Yeah, I can chime in briefly. What I've observed, Zoom's breakout room feature does seem to work really well. It seems that a lot of events I've been on, people have never tried. It's the first time they're doing it with 100 people. So there tends to be as much, and I haven't done it myself actually, but there seems to be confusion of the way to randomize people, and they put you in the same breakout room when it was supposed to be a different one. And there's some things kind of in the back end. So I would, if you're planning it, I would very carefully kind of read the documentation and practice and kind of make sure it's you know what you should be seeing, because when you're in the middle of a live event, it's going to be hard to do that really well. So maybe time for one last question. Just as we're, hopefully, coming into the spring, or maybe even a year from now, hopefully, or eventually, I should say, COVID will end and we'll be past this. How do you all feel kind of virtual programming will be incorporated once you are able to bring homecoming and reunion and things back? Will there be more than there had been before? Will it just look very different than it has been now? Just maybe as a closeout question, thinking a little more future facing.
I would say for St. Ben's and St. John's, we haven't actually specifically spoken about keeping virtual programming in the future. However, we're seeing a lot of really good data coming out of being able to engage our alumni, not only outside of Minnesota, but across the world. And I think there's a lot of value to that. So as long as folks are engaging with us, I think we're going to continue to do some virtual programming in addition to in-person events if we do return to being able to doing that. So I am optimistic that we'll continue to do more virtual events than we ever have. Maybe not at the same level as we are doing now during this time, but I can definitely see an opportunity for us to keep virtual events as part of our programming long term.
I'll just say, oh, go ahead, Erin.
Thank you. I agree. We just last week actually did a virtual 5K, and basically we didn't even care if people completed the 5K, but we encouraged everybody to send photos of themselves completing the 5K and photos of their view while they were running or walking or bike or cycling. And we got it was so well attended. We got so many photos. We got a picture of a woman running in Ethiopia with the neighborhood children running behind her. It was amazing. And again, this is such a great way to reach people from all over the world who aren't near our necessarily targeted regional areas. And that is an event we're going to have every year from here on out, virtually, because seeing those photos come in was so rewarding, and to see everybody wearing their Creighton blues and working out together. And we had videos that we released throughout the week of faculty and staff sharing health food, like little preparation kitchen how-tos and stuff like that. It was just a really great week. And yeah, stuff like that. We're even talking about doing kind of a similar thing, but with a golf tournament going forward. And I could see those living on through the years, whether we're back in person or not.
Yeah, not too much to add to that. Same. We'll probably slow our pace just a little bit of virtual events once there's in person, but we're not going to give up on them completely, especially being in a small town where people don't get back to as much. So it's going to be so important. And one other thing I want to say before the end, just as a piece of advice, if you're an ALC customer or thinking about it, the document that lays out how to do all this stuff has recommendations. So people asked about the lights and the microphones, the cameras, that's all in there. And then probably the best recommendation is for StreamYard, which is, I guess, this encoder or the streaming service that you're seeing power this. And that's made a huge difference in the way everything looks. So I wanted to make sure I got that shout out to StreamYard and the recommendation from ALC in here before we leave as well. So yeah, thanks.
Again, I'd echo what everybody else said. We've heard from numerous alumni who don't necessarily live where we would have a chapter or an in-person event, and they have been very appreciative that they've been able to participate online. So I'm sure it's something that we will continue. Again, don't know if we'll keep up the same pace that we have been doing, but it's for certain something that will continue, and hopefully just something that can add to in-person events again when they come back.
Great. Well, thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate the insights you've been able to share. Also, thank you to everyone who attended and folks who shared some of what they're doing and interesting ideas in the comments. I know that's there's a wealth of great information there for everyone too. This recording will be available. Everyone who registered will get an email tomorrow with the link to that. So feel free to share that and everything. And hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and obviously best of luck with the fall. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.